Good morning, everybody. We're going to start maybe a minute early. My name's Jeff Barron. I'm a partner in the Intellectual Property Department at Barnes & Thornburg. And this is a subject that is near and dear to my heart. I am also a member of the board on TechPoint Foundation for Youth, which is really an incredible organization that I'm very privileged to be a part of. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mike Langelier, who's going to take over, and I hope this will be an informative and very interesting presentation. Sure will be. Take care.
Thanks, Jeff. Hi, everybody. As always, happy Friday. Four quick things I'm going to spotlight that are coming up. Any of you that are entrepreneurs, startup folks, or have those in your network, on Monday we have an entrepreneur boot camp. And it's going to be at the Speakeasy, and it's going to be sales and marketing focused. This is going to be a really good one. We have the chief revenue officer from HC1.com, is now at a local company, high growth company here in Indianapolis. Previously, though, he was a senior executive at Salesforce, at SAP, and also at IBM. And so he's going to be sharing some best practices. So those of you who have sales leadership and entrepreneurial leadership in your networks, this is going to be a really good one. Jim Bartek is going to share best practices for sales, for startup sales and marketing too. So again, that's Monday afternoon. Make sure to get signed up today if that's something that's relevant. The second thing is Indy Xmas. Those of you who may remember from last year that we did a holiday party for out-of-towners last year to help engage them, kind of provide in one night bottle the best of the local tech community and the companies that are here. We ended up having close to 250 people that attended, 86 out-of-towners from 14 states, and each of the 6 companies that were there ended up hiring at least one person who's moved back. So we're doing it again. It's at the Speakeasy in Developer Town as well. It's on December 27th from 7 to 10 p.m. So how many of you have out-of-town friends and family that are coming in? Hold up your hands. Wow, you guys are... Come on now. Okay, those of you that do have your hands up, how many of you of those out-of-towners do you want them to move back? Wait, more hands popped up. Okay, so this is your opportunity. In most cases, this must be a family-oriented crowd. In most cases, hands go down when I ask that question. It's going to be a blues and bourbon party. It's going to be a holiday party. It's going to be fun. We're going to have a band. We're going to have bourbon tasting. But we're also going to have companies there and interacting as well. So it's an opportunity for people to potentially find a job. Again, December 27th, talent@techpoint.org. Email that to connect folks that would be relevant to attend. Tech Thursday coming up this month as well. Remind me of the date. Tech Thursday. What's that? The 11th. The 11th this month in Shop Your Spot, a startup company with some seasoned entrepreneurs behind it, are going to be telling their story. Last thing, the Mira Awards is earlier this year, March 21st. So much earlier that actually nominations and applications open today for Mira Awards. So please spread the word. Again, share that across your network. Last year we had a record number of applications, and we want to do it again this year. So thanks, everybody. I'm going to turn it over now to Laura Dodds, who's the Executive Director of the TechPoint Foundation for Youth, for our panel.
Thank you, Mike. Before we get started today, I just wanted to thank TechPoint for giving us this stage today, and also Barnes & Thornburg for hosting us all here today. So like Mike said, I'm Laura Dodds, the Executive Director of TechPoint Foundation for Youth. If you have not heard of us, we've been around since about 2001. We started as the philanthropic arm of TechPoint. We operate on about $1 million endowment that was raised by some amazing tech entrepreneurs here in the city to kind of get us started. That endowment currently feeds about 20% of our operating dollars and program supplies, and the rest of the money we raise each year. So just to give you an idea of what we do, our mission is to ensure Indiana's K-12 students have access to experiential, hands-on STEM opportunities that inspire a pursuit of STEM careers. So we're very much invested in the STEM pipeline crisis and workforce issues that we're facing. So I have some amazing panelists here today that are all a part of a huge initiative that the City of Indianapolis was granted and TechPoint Foundation serves as the project manager for, and that's an initiative called US2020. We have a lot of partners in this initiative, too many to name here today, but I've invited a few to join us. One of those people is David Becker, who is the CEO and president of First Internet Bank. Stephanie Bothun with the City of Indianapolis. She's the Director of Education Initiatives here in the city. And then we have Carole Puls with Roche Diagnostics. She's both the communications corporate partner as well as in charge of employee engagement and corporate giving for Roche. So we're just going to talk a little bit about US 2020, which emerged from a White House call to action to address the STEM education and workforce issues facing our country, with the goal to deploy 1 million STEM mentors into the community by the year 2020. This is specifically targeted at those students typically underrepresented in STEM fields, so low income, minority, and females. So to get started, Stephanie, can you tell us a little bit about why the city chose to get involved with this initiative and why it's important to the mayor?
Sure. Just first, thank you guys so much for being here today, and thanks to Laura for the opportunity to participate. We're really excited about US 2020 from a city perspective. So the mayor's vision for education is that every child will have access to an education that enables them to define their own life path. So that system starts with access to affordable, high-quality early childhood education. It continues through K-12 with having lots of options that meet individual student needs. And then it goes on to workforce development, where we try to look at how do we make sure that our supply of our workforce is meeting the demand from our employers. So we look at all those different pieces, but specifically for US 2020, we know we have a couple of challenges that we're facing. And many of you professionals in the room will totally understand this sentiment much more so than I do when I live it every day. But we know that demand for STEM professionals is outpacing supply of our workforce that's coming through. There's a couple statistics they shared with us at US 2020. In STEM fields, there's 2.4 jobs for every one unemployed person. In non-STEM fields, there's only 1 job for every 5 unemployed people. So we need to get more of our workforce into STEM fields. We know there's a gap there. So we know there's a gap on that side, but the second piece of that is looking at the students who are coming out. So the University of Virginia did a study, and they asked students by the age of 8th grade why they weren't going into STEM fields. And there was 2 main reasons. The first reason was they don't know what STEM means or what people in those fields do. And secondly, they don't know anyone that specifically works in those fields. So when we look at US 2020, we feel like it's really addressing many of those issues. We're looking at aligning the supply and demand of the workforce in partnership with inspiring students at the program level earlier so that we get them into those careers or into those fields sooner. So we're really excited about this effort.
Great. So as I mentioned, we have a guiding coalition of many, many partners that include corporations, youth-serving organizations, as well as proven STEM hands-on experiential programs. And First Internet Bank was one of our founding partners for the City of Indianapolis US 2020 initiative. David, can you talk a little bit about maybe why First Internet found this initiative interesting and why you as a corporate partner signed up?
It's really kind of twofold, Laura, as just pointed out by my fellow panelists here. I've been in the software industry for 30 plus years, and there's always been tremendous demand and need. In fact, talking to a couple folks before the panel started here this morning, there's a whole generation from probably age 25 to 40 that there was nobody doing computer science or any of the STEM type programs because they thought all the jobs had gone overseas, and it's the exact opposite. So in my software hat, there's tremendous need. We've always had a vacuum. We've had more opportunities than we have players. From the banking standpoint, it's a natural fit for us. It's a great community involvement program. All of my employees, both at the software and bank, they don't want to just write checks and give money. They want to get engaged and be a part of the process as well. So the volunteer aspect of this is fantastic. As a bank, as all banks have, we have what's called CRA requirements, and it's Community Reinvestment Act is the name of the law. And again, this particular program fit that community reinvestment program to the T because it's engaged in kind of underserved, underprivileged youth. It's a program that ties back in math, which although today most banking, quite honestly, is done by computers. We don't have those old adding machines and calculators in the back rooms anymore, but there still is a very sizable math component to it. So it's great for that program too, and it gets our employees engaged back in the community where we live, work, and play. The US 2020 program was perfect, and it in kind of the selfish side of it, that enables us to kind of grow that next generation of future employees from the bank standpoint. And as pointed out by Stephanie, engagement side of it from the employee base is just as strong as it is from the student base. We have study after study that shows that 66% of the employees feel a greater commitment to the employer because of the volunteer activities and things that they're exposed to from the employer's level. So you get a double payback. You not only get to help the community, but you get a better loyal following out of the employee standpoint. 92% of the employees engaged in the program feel it's a better kind of physical, mental health side from their end of it. My companies over the years, the bank in particular, has won a lot of regional and national awards as one of the best places to work. And I think it's back to this as a big part of that component that enables us to win those awards, getting them engaged back in the community and being a part of it and doing hands-on, not just writing checks to donate.
Yeah, it's definitely a win-win because in many of the schools in which this program will take place, we have a majority minority population and a majority low-income population. So having the employees from the STEM companies engaged in these programs fills that role that often in more affluent areas is filled by a parent who's able to volunteer after school to run or coach a program. In these schools, those opportunities don't exist, so we're filling that gap with STEM employees who understand and are committed to this goal that we have as a city. So Carole, with Roche, I know you're involved with community engagement and getting your employees involved. What do you see as a benefit to Roche to be a part of this initiative?
Well, at Roche, giving back is really part of who we are. We're a healthcare company, and the people who work at Roche, I think, have kind of that higher calling, just working in healthcare. And when you look at the various areas of the STEM world that reside at Roche, we have a huge flux of employees who are engaged in technology, engineering, science, and math. So it just makes sense for us to have that vested interest in ensuring that that pipeline continues to succeed. And particularly for us, we were looking to get more engaged in STEM. We had become partners with the mayor's office on the City Robotics Championship. I forgot my button. As we were looking at the various ways we could become engaged in STEM, we knew that employee engagement would be a key focus. We have those skill sets. We have those employees who have such a strong passion in those areas. As Stephanie and Laura, we have some engineers who not only want to give back to the community in terms of mentoring students, but they're so passionate about robotics that they have now bought Vex Robotics to have in Roche in the break rooms to play with during off time. So this is definitely something that employees feel passionate about. So it's going back to your comment about win-win. What better way for Roche to be engaged in the community than to support something where our employees already have a passion and a skill set that they can offer. And then we're headquartered on the northeast side of Indianapolis in Lawrence Township, and that's really kind of our home. And we've been looking for ways to be more engaged in Lawrence Township, and I know they're obviously a pilot as well, so we're looking forward to working more closely with them in those schools that will participate in US 2020.
So the organization that answered the call to action from the White House is called US 2020, and they put out an RFI to the whole nation and asked cities who would be interested in joining this movement to engage more STEM professionals in STEM mentoring to submit applications as cities. 52 cities applied for the US 2020 program. 9 of the 10 largest cities in the country applied, and of those 52 cities, 7 were selected, and one of those was Indianapolis. So it's quite a feather in our cap as a city to know that we were chosen. Stephanie, can you talk a little bit about why I know you were a part of the initial conversations on this. Why do you think we at Indianapolis were chosen? What set us apart?
I think there's probably 3 main reasons why we were chosen. I think first, we've alluded to today already that Indianapolis over the past 10 years has really identified itself as a tech area, specifically in the Midwest. So we have a lot of opportunity here for STEM type opportunities. I think the second, part of that too is the mayor, I think, really stepping out and saying that this was going to be a priority and one of his agenda items. So we have the largest citywide robotics championship in the country. We're the only mayor-led citywide robotics championship in the country. So I think our mayor being out front about that was really important. So the conditions really existed by which it was helpful for our application. I think the second reason is I really just want to commend the corporate community when we went to the planning session with the cities, we had the strongest and largest amount of corporate partners in our application out of anyone. That was both financially committed as well as committing to bringing mentors to the table. And so I think just having that diverse group of partners that weren't just one company or one type of company. We have banks, and we have Roche, and we have Rolls-Royce, and we have ExactTarget. We have this diverse group of corporate partners that I think really set us apart. I think the final piece is just the strength of the application. Because we had so many partners at the table, we were really able to look at what are the problems or challenges that we're trying to solve. And we were able to put together pieces that said, okay, well, we have these 10 partners on the corporate side. We have these 5 school districts, and I think, is it 8 schools now, or a few more than that, who are participating. So all the different conditions to create the connections within the portal existed in our application and had been informed by all the partners on the guiding coalition. So I think the conditions were right. We had a strong coalition of corporate partners specifically that really stepped up. And then I think the third was just the strength of the application. We had really thought through and were helping guide some of the other cities in their thinking about how do we do this and how do we get so many partners at the table. And we were already at that step very early on in the process. I think that's a testament to TechPoint Foundation for Youth really being able to convene those partners and being able to figure out who are the right people to have at the table. So I think it's a testament to your leadership as well, Laura.
And your stuff. So as a part of this
tell me to
initiative,
say that,
but I liked it. So a part of this initiative, what we're asking corporate partners to do is to make a financial commitment, but as important as the financial commitment is making a commitment to get their employees engaged. This program can't exist without the mentors, coaching, volunteering, and working within the classrooms of these schools to engage with the students. The requirement for employees is 10 to 20 hours of their time. So one of the things we're really trying to push, and luckily because we have such great corporate partners in the city and such a philanthropic environment and heartbeat that runs through this city, there's quite a few corporations that already know how important it is to give their employees volunteer time off and how that impacts, as David said, morale of employees, but also how that impacts how you are able to attract young talent. So, David, I know the bank has made some changes in their HR policies around supporting this initiative. What are some of those changes, and what is the reaction you're seeing from employees? Are they excited about this? Are they responding?
Yeah, historically, Laura, we've had a lot of activity in community events, and we've always supported and allowed employees to kind of take time off work to go do it, be it building a house for Habitat for Humanity or working in the Parks Department and cleaning up a certain area of the city. This is a much more structured, detailed program, so there's no confusion. We've actually changed our employment policy, and we now pay employees at whatever program and volunteer effort they want to do for 10 hours of community service a year, and that's just guaranteed. It's part of our employee policy to make it more formalized, not only to get them better participation, but no questions on any of the supervisors, or supervisors understand, particularly in this program, of the piece that we're picking up is going to be multiple weeks and defined times with the students after school, so they have to be there and have to be available. So there was no push from a supervisor, today's a bad day, you can't go. We put in a policy, it's locked down, and these folks are committed. And it's fantastic. And I got to tell you, over the years of doing things, swinging a hammer at Habitat for Humanity and crushing some of those problems and pounding nails, that's a lot of fun, no question about it. You can vent a lot of frustration. But when you're doing the mentoring program and you're working with these young children or young adults, and you can almost at times see the light bulb go off in their head when it engages and they get it, that big smile comes across their face. It beats anything that we have ever done. And we're, as I said earlier, committed to the math program. We're doing a math pentathlon program after school with the kids, which is really kind of turning math into a game. And there's a series of events and scores and testing, and they kind of move up through the programs. They kind of semi-compete with each other in the room, and as well as other schools and programs and levels they can achieve. So it should be a great, fun program for both the employee standpoint, and we're also connecting the dots again, showing how math is used in the everyday environment of banking and business in general. So hopefully it'll work out really well. It'll be a great game for them. I can tell you, I have a lot of employees doing homework right now. They want to be smarter than the fifth grader before they get out there. A few folks haven't dusted off their math skills in a lot of years, so it's actually really fun to see them engaged. We have folks sitting in the break room at lunchtime going over homework assignments with each other to make sure they're engaged and on board. So they don't want to be shown up by the kids, and I think it's just going to be a phenomenal program. And again, we do a lot of volunteer efforts, but when you're working with the students, I can tell you personally, there's no better engagement than that because you really see the results of your efforts.
Thank you. So First Internet Bank, their employees have already stepped up and will be starting the Math Pentathlon program in 5 of the schools around Indianapolis. So thanks to your employees, we're going to have a lot of mathletes running around that are going to be a force to be reckoned with. So it's exciting.
Yeah, actually, there was a little bit of concern because it was math-related. What kind of participation we'd have? We were a little bit antsy in the beginning, but over 20% of our employees here in Indianapolis signed up for the program. So it was just an absolute slam-dunk home run. So we were actually able to expand the number of schools and the number of programs we can participate in. So we're really looking forward to it.
So, big picture here, we're talking about how do we inspire more kids to consider STEM careers as they move through college and career. So how do we do that? How do we make learning fun? How do we make sure that when they're out of school, they're doing things that are exciting and inspirational, but also supporting the things they're doing during the school day? So, Stephanie, I know this is also important to the mayor. So can you talk a little bit about the importance of early intervention and positive after-school time, and just how programs like this really level the playing field for some of these most underserved, challenged students?
Yeah, I just want to say first to David that as a former math teacher, I get really excited hearing about break room math programs happening at companies. That's just thrilling. I'm pumped about that. But so, Laura, to your question, a couple of things. So if you've been following the news over the past week, the mayor, in partnership with the City County Council, has worked together on a preschool policy that just passed on Monday night. And the reason for that policy is because we know that students by the age of 2 years old already demonstrate academic and social opportunity gaps by the time they're coming into the school system. So one way to address that issue is definitely to give our low-income children access to high-quality early childhood education. So when you look at our different groups of children, so if you look at it by socioeconomic status, at US2020 they told us that by 6th grade there are 6,000 additional learning hours that our middle and high-income students are getting when compared with the lower-income students. So what's the makeup of those 6,000 hours? Part of that is preschool, part of that is reading with their families, but a large part of that is enrichment programs that are happening at the school level. It's also opportunities to go to museums, workplace experiences, et cetera, that those other children are getting that our low-income children are not getting, and that simply can't happen. We need to level the playing field for them. So when we look at US 2020, what it's doing is it's providing those opportunities, those high-quality STEM programs that give those students a chance to be inspired and to explore. Maybe they're going to a museum or they're going to a lab at Roche. There's just opportunities there for them to make up some of those hours that they don't get traditionally today. So the mayor feels really strongly that all children deserve access to the same types of opportunities. And so when we see those gaps happening, we want to find ways that we can work with our partners to address those gaps. And so the programming that's provided through US 2020 and the expansion of those programs specifically into Indianapolis schools in many of our low-income areas is really going to make a huge difference for a lot of those schools. It's going to unlock the doors to programs, unlock those programs for students, and then unlock mentorship opportunities for them as well, which is a really difficult process when you think about all the pieces that have to be in place in order for that to happen. So I think US 2020 is a great opportunity to level the playing field.
Thank you. I think I'll ask one more question, and I think we're ready to start taking questions from the audience. So, Carole, when you talk about STEM, and I think everyone in the room probably came here because they're interested in this topic, there's a lot out there right now. There's a lot of STEM programs. There's a lot of answers to this issue. So what do you think set this initiative apart for you and made you say, yeah, this is the initiative we want to connect Roche with?
Well, I think that knowing the different partners involved, I think knowing that the organization of it was so well formulated, the database, the vistas, the support that we'll have as a corporate partner. I think sometimes it's difficult because when you're running an employee program, you're bombarded with a lot of opportunities, and I have to say probably all of them are very worthy. But sometimes there's a lot of back-end organization behind those opportunities that corporations don't have the resources to support. And so what's very appealing about US 2020 is the fact that there is this database, that there are vistas who will be that go-between between the corporations and the schools, and that volunteers will definitely they'll be trained, they'll know what they're getting into, I guess. You know, they'll have a lot of opportunity to really kind of vet the different opportunities they have to work with kids, and everything will be kind of done for them. And I think when, we all work in, when you work in corporate America, you work in any type of situation, we all know we're all working longer hours. And so for employees to be able to give back, we have to make it as easy as we can for them, and also ensure that the experiences that they get are very rewarding and valuable and not frustrating. And so I think, that's a key component of US 2020 that makes it appealing, but also I think the idea that now we'll actually have one place for what I know you like to call, Laura, the random acts of STEM, to have a home. And so hopefully we can then look at that collective impact and actually measure, and I believe it's IUPUI that's offered to help us with that in terms of metrics and evaluation. And that's obviously important too, because if you're giving financial support as well as employee support, you want to ensure that those activities that you're being engaged in are actually making a difference. And so I'm excited to actually be a part of something where we can measure and benchmark to see the progress we're making through that collective impact.
Yeah, absolutely. We're working with the STEM Education Research Institute of IUPUI, who's putting together a 6-year evaluation to tell us, were the mentors happy? Did they enjoy their experience? What were the issues? Were the schools happy? Were they excited about the program? Did they see an impact in the students? As well as, did the students take what they learned and continue with STEM initiatives through elementary, middle, and high school? And did that impact their decision for career and college pathways moving forward? So we're excited about putting together all the random acts of STEM under one big umbrella and actually measuring it to see if, as a city, we're really moving the needle there on the pipeline issues. Okay, so I have a few questions, and I'm assuming these go to anyone, so anyone can answer. Is there a plan to address the lost generation that didn't engage in STEM education or training?
I'm the one that mentioned it, so I'm the one that mentioned it. Pray for him, I guess. The really sad part about that in that lost generation game is the impact it's going to have 10 to 15 years from now. And the real play is what we're doing here with these children and getting folks engaged today. They're going to have to carry the water for us because there is that kind of lost generation game out there. So we have tremendous need today. It's going to be worse 10 to 15 years from now as some of the folks in my age and generation start to retire and go away. There's not a backfill. So the gap is going to get even wider before it gets smaller. So there are obviously continuing adult education programs. My father, before he retired from GM several years ago, was taking computer classes because the machines, tool and die, things he used to do by hands for years and years are now being run by computer. In fact, advanced manufacturing is almost all computers nowadays. So the need is just critical throughout the country. And there are programs for that lost generation if they want to engage. A little bit of them might be the part that you can't teach the old dogs new tricks, but I still think I learn every day, and I hope they get the chance to do that as well.
Thank you. I have another question here. Is the real question, how do we make learning fun, or how do we make learning relevant?
I think it's a little bit of both. So I think when we look back to the study that I referenced earlier about why students don't pursue STEM careers, it was those two different areas, right? So we don't understand what people do, and we don't know anyone in those fields. So I think we have to address those two underlying issues. But I think making it fun and having it be hands-on and experiential. When I look at the City of Indianapolis VEX Robotics Championship, what I hear from teachers and coaches, and I'm a former teacher as well, so those hands-on opportunities, you could see a kid who really struggles in your classroom and who doesn't, the day-to-day sort of venue of education isn't working well for them, but you get them in a room with a robot and you see the magic start to happen. And so I think really addressing both sides of that coin are really important. But I think US 2020 is really focused on inspiring those children sooner so that they then have an idea that STEM is something that they should do or could do, so that when they get to the later ages, they're able to access programs that are giving them skills to be able to go into those fields later on.
Yeah, I think, making it fun is definitely part of that, but also the hands-on and interactive component too, because I even hear it with my daughter who's 8. She tells me, science is hard, Mommy, and I'm not good at science. I don't like science. And I say, no, but wait. And then we go to the robotics competition, and she and my son are playing with all the robots, and they're watching the kids compete, and they're saying, well, that's really cool, Mom. And I'm saying, yeah, and that's what science is. So I think making those connections. And then also, it's interesting, we've brought some of those students to Roche, and we have, these huge analyzers that are basically robotics inside. And so being able to show them what that real-world application is for what they're learning now, that what they think is as fun, is actually something that they can then go and grow and learn to do as an adult and have as, their profession. And seeing those real-world applications come to life, I think by mentoring, having those STEM professionals actually working with the kids, really kind of helps them see that long-term picture.
I can back that one up too. A program Laura and I were tremendously engaged in before the STEM 2020 program came about was New Tech High at Arsenal. And I had employees that worked as mentors with folks from freshman year all the way through senior year and graduation. And a lot of those children that we got through the program, about 80% of those kids graduated high school. And those of you that know Arsenal Tech, I think the internal figure is closer to 40%. So it was a double down on the graduation rate. I can tell you the majority of those students were first-time high school graduates in their family, which was phenomenally powerful. And that connection of the relativity to what they do in the classroom, how it relates to businesses, and there were a boatload of businesses here in town that took the field trips and related the programs to the students and how math works, and the science side with IPL and Roche and other companies here in town was just phenomenal. And I had most of my employees attend the high school graduation ceremonies, and I mean, they were right there as proud as a parent. So it's a connection from both sides. It makes it very relevant, very engaging. They have, on the mentoring side, a lot of the students have single-parent families at best. Some are being raised by siblings, grandmothers, whatever, and it's just that connection of both the mentoring and the fun in the classroom, and engages them and keeps them there, and they feel safe in the classroom is a lot of it too. They really build and bond in partnerships that's unbelievable between the students and the mentors. So having multi-year programs like STEM 2020 is really great for both the student population as well as the employee base.
So quite a few questions about just the logistics of the program. I'm trying not to repeat anything. But Stephanie, can you talk a little bit about, I know you were part of the core planning committee, how the schools were selected to be involved and how and why the companies in the pilot year were selected?
Yeah, so, and Laura, you can fill in the gaps here, but I know that we basically took our core partners who were involved in other types of STEM activities throughout the city, such as the Robotics Championship or other types of high-quality STEM programs. And we asked them where were their schools that they were currently either working in or they were wanting to be in, to work in. And so starting there is where we got our first set of schools. But what was great is after we started there was so much interest from other schools and other companies that we really figured out we needed to do a pilot year so that we'd be able to get the infrastructure built, get a model built, so we'd be able to figure out how to scale it up over time. So those initial partners were the core partners who had committed financially, committed mentors, and who were already doing mentorship within the community. And then the original schools were really chosen mostly by our corporate partners since they already had relationships in those spaces.
Right. And then after the corporate partners selected the schools that were near and dear to their hearts that they wanted to work with, we met with the individual superintendents from those schools and said, where are your most at-need areas within your district? And where are the schools where you feel the leadership of the school and the teachers within the school would be most receptive to the idea of having volunteers invade their space from after school on?
And
So-
I think one other thing, sorry, that I forgot to mention that you brought to mind is when we went to the superintendents too, it was really important to create a pipeline. So we wanted to start at elementary school, have that connect to middle school, and then have that connect to high school. So the conversation with the superintendent was how do we create a consistent pipeline? So if a student has an opportunity to do these programs in elementary, will they have that same pipeline in middle school and in high school? And so that's why you see the series of schools that are currently chosen are those subsets. So an elementary, middle, and high school that fit together.
So the other question, we have quite a few questions, like I said. What were some of the obstacles that needed to be overcome? What are some of the obstacles that the US 2020 program aims to solve? Maybe from a corporate side, what are some, logistically, why is this easier for you? And Stephanie, maybe from the city side, where was this different from other initiatives?
Well, I think, again, it really just brings to bear all those key components. So you have a rich database with opportunities that have been vetted. You have the VISTA support to help make that connection with the school. You have a very easy way for employees to get engaged and to receive some type of training. All of those background checks, everything that needs to happen to ensure that those employees are the right employees for that opportunity, all kind of takes place as part of this program. So it really helps reduce the amount of resources needed on the corporation side to ensure that those connections take place. There's just not as much hands-on management from my perspective. And given this is just a small part of my job, that's really beneficial to me.
One of the things from the corporate level in the commitment play, Carole just said this program met every criteria we were looking for as a program we wanted to get engaged in. The other side of that equation, though, in the mentoring program and the consistency of the program over a multiple-week game created a little bit of a logistics issue. And I had to sell the senior management team. Obviously, it was near and dear to my heart, but I had to get them on board because it is a commitment. And particularly in the mentoring play, they've got to have that consistency of classroom. You can't have a bad day and not show up because you're going to have 25, 30 little individuals depending on you being there after school. So we are actually doing a little bit of a tag team situation in some of the programs, particularly in the schools where we get further south of the city or far east and west. So we make sure, bad weather, whatever happens, that we have people that can get there and be a part of the program and be there all the way through. So we're actually probably throwing a little more resource at it once it's in play and everybody understands it to get it off the ground, because you definitely don't want to disappoint these young folks on the other side. This is a glimmer of hope, and you blow that candle out early and everybody's in trouble. So there is a phenomenal corporate commitment and personal commitment from the folks that are volunteering to do the mentoring game, because it is really, it's a phenomenally rewarding engagement, but it is a commitment. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And you really have to sell that up front. It's not kind of something you go do for a day and then go back to work.
And I'll just add, I think Carole articulated really well some of the barriers that we're trying to address, but from a city perspective, the only thing I'll add is random acts of STEM is real, and if we're trying to solve a workforce crisis and we're trying to solve it quickly, we need to be able to understand where are we, and are we actually creating system-level change when it comes to mentors and programming. And because we have so many different programs, disparate systems, people operating in their silos, there was no way from a city perspective for us to look at this and say, are we making a difference? Yes, we have this great program or that great program, but at a system level, are more mentors coming in? Are more companies creating corporate policies? Are more students actually getting access? Are those students actually going on to STEM careers? And so I'm excited from a city perspective to have that data and to understand how that can inform our strategy going forward.
Back again on that one, and looking at the long-term future, I brought up the kind of missing generation. There is also an issue right now in the banking community with all the bad press and 08, 09 Wall Street issues and craziness going on. I think students in school today looking at being a banker when they grow up, that's right below trash collector. So it's a little bit tough, and it's a pretty rough program for us out here. So we've got to re-engage the community and let them know that the banking community is okay. We need to start that process today, because we're going to have a lost generation of bankers coming up in the not-too-distant future. It's just not on anybody's radar screen. It's not a popular employment program anymore. So this is a way for us to get the folks engaged and get them back into the finances okay.
And I would say as we designed this program, we looked at it from all angles. Why are the reasons why employees are not getting engaged in programs? Why are they not volunteering? Well, a lot of that is they just don't know what's out there. Mm-hmm. They don't feel supported by their companies to get out and go do things. They don't know how to easily connect with a program. If you want to get involved with a STEM program, you start with STEM programs that serve youth, and it'll probably pop up our website. So it's not as easy as you think to engage in a program. So having access to the portal, which is what we have access to as a winning city, allows people to basically search opportunities. So we knew that was an obstacle and it was going to be overcome with this. Another issue that people face, and if any of you have individually as a parent or as a volunteer or as a corporate partner have tried to connect with a school, it's extremely difficult because if you go to a school, you realize there's no one at the school whose job is community liaison. So often you're stuck with the school secretary who's also the vice principal and the nurse. So having, as a part of the winning city, we have access to the AmeriCorps Vista program. So we have 3 full-time volunteer staff that are given to us. It's kind of a domestic Peace Corps program, if you will. They work full-time and they liaison between the schools and the program. So if you want to get connected with one of the schools in the initiative, you don't have to contact the school. You're contacting one individual who is contacting multiple individuals within the school. The other issue that we know is a problem is the hands-on STEM programs are not cheap to run. The schools don't have the money to run the programs. You can't expect the mentors to pay for the program. And every corporation doesn't want to get hit up by, will you sponsor my kid's robotics team, from every employee they have. They want to be able to just sponsor big picture ideas. They can't possibly start to sponsor everything. So TechPoint Foundation is raising funds to provide a fund for US 2020. So if you're a US 2020 corporate partner with US 2020 vetted program and you would like to start a program within one of our US 2020 schools, you're able to apply for a grant that will pay for the cost of the $700 robot to start that program. The math pentathlon kits and games that will need to be run in the classroom. You have an avenue to do that because we don't want that to be an obstacle for the programs to take place, and we also know you can't charge the kids because we're working with kids who don't have the ability to spend $25 to be a part of this program. So, another question. I did have a couple questions on how corporations can get involved. Stephanie, I think this will come back to you again. Can you talk a little bit about our 6-year timeline, when we're going to engage more nonprofits, more companies, and how we look to expand this statewide?
Yeah, so I think the first answer is contact Laura Dodds. She will give you all the information that you need. But yeah, so what we're looking at is we're looking at a pilot year in the first 2 years. So we're looking at building the model this year, really getting all of our infrastructure and technology in place. And then potentially expanding that a little bit next year, but just making sure that before we go too far, too fast, that we have all the infrastructure built, all the systems and processes in place, which is a big role that the Vistas are playing in this process. So then when we get to years 3 and 4, that's where we want to see growth across all areas of the program. So we'd like to see additional companies get involved in terms of sponsorship and mentors. We'd like to see more STEM programs being offered at more schools, and we'd like to have more school partners. So I can't tell you the exact number that we're looking for in year 3 or year 4, but I think if we could double the size by year 3 and year 4, we'd be very excited about the impact that could make. Then when we look into year 5 and year 6, I think we're looking at definitely saturating the Indianapolis market in any way that we can, certainly from my perspective. But then we hope to create a model that can be taken anywhere, really, but specifically statewide. So random acts of STEM is not unique to Indianapolis. That happens, the challenges that Laura and David and Carole have identified are true across the country, and especially in large cities with companies, large STEM companies across the country. So I think in year 5 and year 6, if we can think about a scalable statewide model, I think we have a lot of smart tech people in here, maybe they could help us with that. Year 5 and year 6, we could take it statewide, but then we could also be a national model for how other cities and states could think about doing this work. Did I miss anything, Laura?
I don't think so. I mean, as you work with statewide partners in STEM, and Indiana actually has a great network through some stuff Purdue University and IUPUI and others are doing with the iSTEM network of individuals from across the state who are working towards this problem and really trying to address it. So we have a lot of opportunities to connect this statewide, and as you talk to these partners, they'll tell you, well, we don't want to know what's happening in Indianapolis, what's happening around the state. So there's a lot of opportunity for us to figure out how to grow programs statewide. All right, so another question we have, and I'm not sure if you guys can answer this or not, but this individual recently visited an Indianapolis school for low-income students, and they had an issue with connecting kids to after-school programs because they found that a lot of the kids had work or had to babysit siblings. How will we address getting kids excited about the programs or getting kids involved? And do we see attendance in these programs as an issue for kids K through 12?
I can address just a wee bit of that. One of the real issues in after-school programs for the young children is transportation home. Mm-hmm. If they miss the bus and don't get on the normal routine to get home, it's a transportation issue. And that's one of the commitments I know Laura and folks in the city have worked with the schools and the superintendents to get them on board, because it is going to be a little bit of inconvenience for the schools in making sure that the students have the ability, just as a lot of them, as I stated earlier, single-parent families might still be working, or they have to go home and babysit younger siblings yet. Hopefully these are the younger ones out of the bunch, and they don't have that commitment. But it's just transportation, something you don't really even think about, is really an issue about keeping them in after-school programs. So that takes the schools getting on board and ensuring that these students are going to be able to get back and forth to home. And I think we have the commitment, at least I know all the schools that we're talking to, that they're behind it. They'll make sure the students are there, they're safe, and they're covered, and they have transportation back and forth to home. And as Laura said, through grants, donations, and gifts, we're able to cover the cost of the program. So it's no additional cost to either the schools and or the students engaged or the parents of these students. It really is just the use of the facilities, and it's the transportation equation is the piece that they have to pick up on their side.
I think it's a real challenge. I think it's a great point that we do see that it's difficult. I had several students who were 13 years old taking care of 3 brothers and sisters when they would go home. So that's a very real challenge for families. I think one thing we've talked a little bit about is really thinking about how can we integrate some of this work into the school day, so into the classroom, into the opportunity when those students are already at school. So I know we have some partnerships where they're trying to figure out with the curriculum and with the programming, is there a way to have volunteers, mentors who could come on their lunch break and work with students during that period of time? Or could we integrate it with a math classroom or with some other type of existing infrastructure within the school so that students wouldn't have to come before or after school, and we could help address some of those barriers? I don't think we have a lot of solid answers to that question yet. I think that's something that is continually in formation for us, and that barrier that you identified is very real, and one that we're going to have to continue to think about as we grow the program.
Absolutely, and I'll tell you from the management of this program, my biggest fear is not getting kids excited, because it's not hard to get kids excited about building a robot. But one of the factors that we have no control over is, will the mentors actually sign up? How do we make sure employees are interested? And so we have a question here. Besides offering volunteer time off, what are some of the other things corporations can do to incentivize or encourage and really get their employees to engage? Because if we don't have the employees engaging in the programs, this will be dead in the water.
Quite honestly, I'll let Carole jump in here too. I think it really comes from the top. If the senior management of the company is engaged in a part of the program, I sat in all the original meetings. I'm the one that signed off on the commitment for the finance side of the play. I try to lead by example and be a part of it and engage the employees on the other side. If you just post it up on an employee bulletin board, here's an opportunity, that's the kind of response you're going to get. You have to get engaged. You have to educate them. We had Laura and her team come in. We had 2 or 3 prep meetings, I guess, before we even offered up the program to the employees, just talking about what it was, what's coming, tried to get them excited and engaged in it. Again, a little bit of the fear of the 5th grade math. Had some folks on the fence, so we actually got copies of the game and how it worked and what they did so they could start their homework in pieces and realize that they're not going to be in advanced geometry or something of that nature. So it really is, it's a concentrated, it's work, and you have to spend some time on it to get them engaged. You can't just post it and hope they show up. So I think it really, the company has to get behind it, and the employees will get behind it without question.
I think, too, educating employees about the issue. At least I know at Roche, we have so many employees who are already working in these STEM careers, and they're very passionate about what they do. Scientists and information technology folks and engineers, that's their passion. And they don't want to see those careers die. They want to see them continue to flourish. So they have a vested interest in trying to help ensure that there are students who continue along those career lines. And so I think educating them about the problem and helping them understand kind of what's in it for them and why it's important to ensure that our company continues to thrive here in Indianapolis is important. But I guess I haven't had that problem yet, so I've been really fortunate that whenever we have a volunteer opportunity, we have more people who want to volunteer than sometimes we have opportunities. So my hope is that what we're able to do through US 2020 is really match up those people who have been seeking those opportunities and, to Laura's point, weren't sure kind of how to go about it. So this gives them a very easy avenue to help make those connections. And then from a volunteer perspective, at Roche, we have a program called Roche Gives Back. And in addition to compensating employees for their volunteer time during the workday, we also have a donor dollars program. So for any volunteer time outside of the company time, they get $10 per hour matched if they track their time in our portal, and then they can in turn take those donor dollars and cash them out to their charity of choice. And so what we're finding is that that also helps increase the likelihood that they'll be engaged in opportunities long term, where, for example, if they are involved with their Girl Scout troop and they're working to help them with a STEM badge, that obviously qualifies as something that they can in turn receive donor dollars for. And then what we're finding is those types of kind of grassroots programs now are starting to kind of take hold and fit within what we call this US 2020 umbrella, and helping us even to identify things that employees have already been engaged in that now we can bring under this umbrella and really look at that collective impact.
All right, so I have one more question that I think I'll go ahead and answer, which is how can nonprofits and STEM programs get engaged in this program? So one of the issues that we've tried to address with this initiative with schools is schools are often given great new ideas to try, and they're not always receptive because they receive so many great new ideas. So we allowed the schools to make the decisions based on what they thought their students might be most interested in, on what programs they wanted to launch in their school. So what we've created is kind of an online catalog of all of the programs that are out there, and then we're having the schools choose however they see fit. Let their teachers choose, let their principal choose, or actually let the kids vote. Those are how the programs are starting at the schools. So we will, after the initial pilot year, so starting in August of 2015, we'll be looking to add additional programs to the portal that schools can choose to work with. And at that time, and really over the next couple months, we'll be looking to start engaging more with small and medium-sized companies. The initial pilot was focused on larger companies that had a Carole who had some time dedicated within her day to really think about how employees engage in the community. Small and medium-sized companies often don't have that professional working for them. So how we work with those partners is going to look different, and how they view this program is going to be different. And we think it actually is going to prove to be really valuable for those companies because it allows them to start an employee engagement program without really much management because it's all done online. So we'll be doing kicking those off in the next couple months. So if you're looking to get engaged with the program as a corporate partner, if you're looking to start an engagement program within your own company, we'd be happy to talk to you more about this. What we want to keep pushing out there to people is there's a lot of individuals in this city of ours who have an interest in volunteering. What we don't know is that there's a lot of people in the city who have specialized skills, and we want to direct those skills towards certain programs. So if you look at as a parent or as a grandparent, if you think about, I want to get my kids involved in software engineering because that's a hot job skill, and they would love to code, and I want to take all this computer time they spend and really direct it towards something productive, and then you search a search, how can I get my kids involved in computer programming, you'll find that there are no programs out there. So there's no coincidence that we have no kids going into computer science, and there's no computer science programs. What we do know is that there are computer scientists, and we know that there are coders and programmers in the city. So what we're really trying to do with this program is help educate them that this is a crisis only they can solve. I cannot teach kids to code. There's just no way. That's not happening. I know coders, though, and I know some coding programs. So we would just encourage anyone who's involved with a STEM program to really think of it from the perspective of you hold the knowledge here, you are the knowledge authority on these topics, and if you don't engage in these programs, then the crisis, the STEM education and workforce crisis, can't be solved by people who don't hold those specific skills. Looks like I have one more question, and then I think we're done. This is from South Bend. Are mentors from STEM-related professional associations or only corporate sponsors being used? Good question. We actually have a partnership with SIM Indy and Women in High Tech. So we want to make sure we have a good representation of mentors who look like the students. And so when we talk about underrepresented student populations, we're talking about low-income minority and females. So we really want to have professional associations are often a great way for us to connect with mentors who look and feel like the kids we want them to serve. So absolutely professional associations.
I don't want to let folks get out of the room without thanking Laura for her effort on getting this program together. The TechPoint for Youth Foundation board charged her a couple years ago. She did TechPoint High. She did the robotics. What's going to be our next big thing? She found this program. She went after it with the assistance of Stephanie in the mayor's office. She single-handedly got this thing in. And you talk about competition and trying to get this program to Indianapolis. It was tough. There were a lot of cities, big cities, that you would think of would be a shoe-in for a program like this, didn't get it. Indianapolis rose to the top of the heap. And it's all to this lady to my right and to my left who engaged and really won. And it's an honor for Indianapolis to be a part of this program. And it was their dedication and effort that got it here. So we can give them a round of applause for a great effort.
Now you see why I always invite him to come to the campus. All right, well, I think that's it. If you have any other questions, we'll be hanging around here for a few minutes before we all take off. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.